take a picture with me. You're going to come on this side. Here we go. Where's your camera? Put him over here. Here we go.
Your award, Mr. Baldwin.
Oh, my God.
It's hand sculpted.
I'm not going to say what this looks
I know, I just realized that myself. I had no idea.
Thank you. Great, here we go. Ready? Are we good? Great. We're going to go sit down? This way? Okay. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Can you hear me?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ron Bostwick to the stage.
We did. All right.
Hey.
Oh.
How you doing?
Well, I was supposed. Yes. Did you name it? Is there some name for it? The what award?
Like the Valier.
The Valier.
Yeah, named after Bill Valier, sitting right back there.
The Valier Award. Thank you, Bill Valier. I just want to say, I mentioned to Ron before we came out here that I haven't been to Boulder before. I've been through Denver to go skiing, and I've been to Telluride and so forth. And I picked up a copy of the Boulder Weekly today. And had I known you had a serious sex addiction problem in this city, I would have come here a long time ago. A very long time ago. Sad. Sad. But I'm happy to be here now.
Cool.
And thank you for this award. Speaking of sex addiction, you can figure it out. It's the Valier Award, okay. Anyway, Ron, what were you saying?
It makes me very scared to say Happy Valentine's Day to you.
It's all coming together here in Boulder, baby. Valentine's Day, the Valier. Oh, no, who's my I was going to say, I thought, I guess she's my Valentine this year. But anyway, enough of that.
Hey, I know that you've been a little busy lately. I know that you've got a big thing coming up in 3 weeks. We're thrilled that you're here. Thanks very much for coming.
My pleasure. No, really, my pleasure. We talked a lot, at the screenings and with Kathy and with Robin about who I want to thank them very much for inviting me. I said to Kathy, I was joking with her, I said, people will call you and ask you to do these things, and you don't always have time. I mean, there's the travel involved and everything. I said, but she was so nice, on the phone. It was like, yeah. She was like Mrs. McGillicuddy out of the Little Rascals, She's like, would you come to Boulder and come to our film festival? And I was like, of course I'll come to Boulder, Mrs. McGillicuddy, and come to your film festival. But it was really, I've come here, and you have a great town. It's a great town, Boulder, by the way. A great town. And you have a great town for a film festival, a lot of restaurants and nightlife and things, so people can have fun and then they can watch some great films. And I've enjoyed a lot of the films you had here this year. I flew in yesterday and went to a couple last night and today. And I hope you will all stay committed to the festival year in and year out. You have a great, this is a great thing for you here, and really help it grow and come every year and get a pass and come see some great films and support the festival.
So the first thing I want to do is I want to go back about 30 years because I want to read to you your senior year high school yearbook entry. Okay? This was you. Football.
Right.
Lacrosse.
Right.
Class president.
Right.
Youth council.
Right.
Student activity committee.
Yes.
And drama.
Right. Well, when I went to school, drama was
last.
Right, well, drama was something that I did periodically, and it was something that it was kind of a truthfully, there was kind of I mean, I graduated high school in 1976, and so sad to say that. And the drama and acting and things, it really wasn't the way it is now. You know, like I'm on the board of the School of the Arts at NYU, and you have people applying to go to Tisch, the School of the Arts that I went to, who have the grades. They have the CUME, and they have the SATs, they have the GPA and the SATs to go to law school or go to medical school. They're some of the top students in the world, but acting is something now that they feel is legitimized and they want to try that, or filmmaking and directing, or some component of that. They have the Clive Davis School of Music at NYU that a lot of people are applying to learn the business of recorded music and so forth. And but when I went there, I played football and lacrosse, and then we would go do I feel horrible saying this because it's kind of a cliche, but this guy Fred Stoller, who was the drama coach there, yeah, right.
Yeah. You know?
How do you know Fred? She went to high school?
I went to school with you.
Where?
McKenna Junior High.
You went to McKenna Junior High School?
Mr. Kovar's Spanish.
Who went to Burner? No. You went to, what year did you,
God.
what year did you graduate? Ah.
I think is the answer.
And you went to McKenna.
Your dad was my social studies.
You went to MHS. Yeah, well, they had two high schools in the town.
Ronna Miller.
Ronna Miller, everyone. Ronna Miller, come on. Ronna Miller. And what's your name back there whose age you wouldn't reveal to us?
Susan Bostwick.
Susan.
Are you from Massapequa?
Yes.
You know, my grandparents lived in Old Westbury. Hold on, so we'll be right with you. No, really, my grandparents were in Old Westbury. Maybe we're related.
What was your favorite flavor ice cream at Krish's? No? All American, double, that's right. French fries. Anyway. This is a hard drinking town, too, I think. A hard drinking town. Boulder. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a mining town. You're tough people. So anyway, in school, it was kind of not popular to be in the acting program because the acting coach, he really was of a certain type, and he said, he was like, why don't you get some of your football friends to come and be in my production of Mr. Roberts? I think that would be so great if you, and I'd be like going to the football team and we'd be going to play, and I'd be like, I was wondering if any of you guys wanted to, and they would look at me like I was insane, you know what I mean? They weren't going to be in the drama club. But then I went to NYU to study acting, and it was what I wound up doing for my career, which I never thought I would do. But
The first big role you had, The Doctors.
it is Soap in New York.
Soap in New York in 1980, 79,
80, yes, sir, yeah.
Something like that. How did that come about, and did you go, hey, I mean,
Well, I had to go
we
to
like
school
Joey
for it.
Tribbiano? Like, all right.
No, I was in New York, and I was working at a restaurant, and a woman who was a casting agent said, oh, my friend is casting a soap, and would you go? And this is back when, soaps were still pretty viable, and a lot of them shot in New York. And it was a tough job because it was the material was so trite, you know what I mean? So you had to go home every night and remember, yeah, thank you. And you had to memorize like 30 pages of, I'd be with my friends, we'd go out to drink, and I'd be sitting there on the subway, and I'd be like, I love you, Mary, I love you, I love you. I love you so much, Mary. Oh, Mary, I love you, I love you. And you had to memorize all this really bad writing. But the content of the writing aside, it was a professional training ground because you had to show up for work. You had to get there early in the morning. We started working at 7 o'clock in the morning. You had to know your lines. You had to hit your marks. And it was a very good place to start. I mean, a lot of actors have started in daytime TV. And it was a good place to start. I did that for a couple of years.
And then, one thing that we've talked about is how your career is sort of in chunks, 80s, 90s, future.
Yeah, the 80s was like doing doing the soap, then going to LA and doing nighttime TV, and I did Knots Landing for a season or two. And I did that show, which was a great show because you learn about nighttime TV, and that's its own animal, and you learn that Hollywood is a small town. It's a small town, boy. anybody here who's worked in LA and worked in at the Hollywood studios, it's a small, like this guy, like you're sitting there and there's like history just comes at you, you know. So this guy, Billy Reynolds, who was my makeup artist, is Debbie Reynolds' brother. And yeah, her brother Billy was a makeup artist, a very famous makeup artist in LA, and he was Elvis Presley's makeup artist. And he's doing my makeup, and like every morning. I mean, he thought I was kidding, and then eventually he learned I wasn't kidding. Like I could never hear enough stories about Elvis Presley. I would sit there and go, so then what happened, Billy? Then where'd you and Elvis go, Billy? And he really talked kind of like a little, almost like, he was like, well, then Elvis and I, we went and did this picture. We were in Hawaii, and Elvis was a great man. He was a great man. And you just learn, like this guy over here next to you was Elvis Presley's makeup artist, and he's Debbie Reynolds' brother. And Hollywood is like, it's a small town, you know, and you really learn that when you're there, and you work with the same people, and you get to know the people there, and then I did that, and then I got into the film business in the end of the 80s.
Right. Films like Beetlejuice, Married to the Mob.
Yeah, the first film I did was She's Having a Baby with Kevin Bacon, and yeah, and Kevin, they're going to have a big John Hughes tribute at the Oscars this year because John died, unfortunately, and. We did, that movie was the first film I did, and then I did a lot of little roles in films in 87, 88, 89, and then I did leads in films throughout, beginning in the 90s. I played a lot of leads.
So we hit the early 90s, here you are, Jack Ryan, Hunt for Red October,
Right.
Wham!
Right.
How did you feel at that time?
Well, I remember that I was first starting to make films, and there's a difference between doing more character roles where you're going to be able to be a little more inventive, and what you do is much more complicated, and what's expected of you, I don't want to say it's more that is expected of you, but it's different. And then you show up on the set of a big hardware movie like the Tom Clancy series and things like that, and it's a different kind of acting, but it's just as disciplined because it's more what you don't do. You know, there's not, you kind of got to get out of the way of the movie and the force of Clancy's storytelling and the technical aspects take over. And I just remember at that time I was on a plane, and I got on a plane, and I remember Clancy's books were very popular then. And everywhere you went when you traveled, people had paperback versions of, I mean, the people who are old enough to remember this in the, no, but I mean, a lot of people, you know, books are different now. I mean, how many people here remember books? Remember books? Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah. Before there was Kindle, we had a candle, actually, and we would read by a candle. And so we had books back then. They were really fantastic. And and they had, you know, Cardinal of the Kremlin and Red Storm Rising and all of Tom's books that were very Patriot games and so forth. And I got on a plane, and I was in the first class cabin of a plane, and like 8 of the 10 people in the cabin were reading one of Tom's books. And I thought, I'm going to be the guy that is the central figure in these books. And it was very intimidating. It was very intimidating. So I did the film, and it was a great experience, and it was great. That was one of the first of many situations where I met these iconic people in the film business, and that's always interesting to work with somebody who's as famous as Sean, you know, and he was quite a character. And yeah, no, but he was like, he goes and he knows what movie making is about. So he goes into a room for days on end, and he goes and does these wardrobe fittings and these makeup tests, and they make his hairpiece. They make a hairpiece for him, like this brush cut, very steel-colored hairpiece, and he has all these clothes cut to fit him, I mean, perfectly. And the first day I shot with him that he walked on, he literally walked up to me, and in my mind I thought, I'm so fucked now in this movie. I said, no one is going to ever look at me or see me. I'm invisible now. This guy is a god, and I am dead. I'm like bird shit on the sidewalk here. It's just terrible, you know. And he looked like $10 million, you know. He just looked like, and but you know, you learn things from everybody you work with. Is the opportunity for you to learn, especially people who were as estimable as him. Yeah. And he was a great guy.
So then you move into these roles that I call, you know, sort of the heavy roles that weren't like a Red October,
Right.
Glengarry,
Right.
Dallas,
Right.
Ghost of Mississippi also.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a heavy role. Well, yeah, heavy dramatically, not a bad guy. Yeah.
When I was getting ready for this, I watched Ghost on Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah.
And it really hit me that day. And as I was putting these clips together, every time I would see you on the phone with Whoopi, I would get a lump in my throat because you showed the humanity of DeLauder, of life.
Well, I was that was probably one of the most meaningful films because I think everybody who's an actor wants to do, if it's right and if the material is worthy, they want to do a social drama. Everybody wants to do On the Waterfront or A Tree Grows in Brooklyn or Gentleman's Agreement. They want to do something. Those are movies, by the way, for the younger people in the crowd that addressed very important social issues at the time. I'm sorry. But you, when I did that film, I was very. I mean, I went home and I cried. I was like, I can't believe, because DeLauder was a very well-regarded figure. Interestingly enough, DeLauder just went to prison because he got wrapped up in this. How many people know the Bobby Scruggs case down in? That was where they had all the. You should go online to the New Yorker magazine website and read the article about Scruggs. And Bob got caught in some federal sting operation. He was innocent of what they were charging him with, but they got him on they kind of squeezed him on a perjury rap and forced him to take a plea. And he just went to prison in Florida or in Kentucky for 18 months. And it was terrible. But Bob, who was this Hinds County prosecutor, which encompassed Jackson, Mississippi, reopened the Medgar Evers murder case. And everyone said, it's funny, you look at movies and sometimes people do embellish. Like you, but surprisingly, they don't. I mean, you see some of these figures and say, people wouldn't believe it if we put a camera on him that this was reality. But Dee Beckwith in films where you saw Dee Beckwith, who Jimmy Woods played in the film, he was just as maniacal as Jimmy, who played him, you know. You couldn't make the guy crazy enough. He was really this crazy, racist, hate-filled, quirky, colorful guy. And so that movie was really, when Rob Reiner asked me to do that movie, I was so honored, really. And we went down. The only problem was you do learn, one of my biggest memories of that film was you do learn that when you play someone who is an historical figure and you meet them, I mean, obviously if they're not dead, if they're a living historical figure, did you follow what I'm saying there? So, Abraham Lincoln and I were walking down the street the other day, and I said to him, listen, man, when that was all going down, what was going through your mind, man? Bobby was a living figure, and I spent a lot of time with him, and that can present a problem. Like, that was a lesson I learned from the film, was like, sometimes you don't want to hang with the people you're playing because it infiltrates your performance. And we did a scene the first day, and Rob Reiner walked up to me and he goes, let me tell you something. He goes, I know you went down to Mississippi and you spent like 3 weeks hanging out with Bobby and talking to him and everything, and you went around Mississippi. I did this whole tour. And he goes, but if you talk like Bobby talks, he said, this movie's going to be 9 hours long. Because Bobby DeLauder, the real Bob, I swear to God, he would talk like this to me in his house. He spoke like this. And I found myself kind of getting infected by that. So we did our first show, and I was like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And Rob was like, cut. So you can't, but you do get it, when you meet the real deal, you really feel like it does kind of infiltrate your performance.
I want to jump ahead a little bit because I want to get to The Cooler because I don't want to miss this. Okay. The fact that The Cooler, I thought was a great movie. Nice little nomination that you got. People started seeing your work again. Right. You know, what was going through your mind at that time after having been in the business for so long, and now here comes all this new attention to you?
But when you make films, it's a very, it can be very difficult because the film business, You know, Dustin Hoffman once told me something that I thought was a great line. He said to me, we were talking about how competitive it is for good material, and Hoffman is very generous to other actors when you speak to him. He knows you want to hear things. He knows, you know, tell me what you think. And he said, we're all in line. Some of us are just in a shorter line. And the competition for good material for leading actors and actresses in Hollywood, actresses is probably even worse, because really searing roles for women are even fewer and further between. And that competition is tough. And so I got to the point, like after 2000, I got separated from my ex-wife. I was getting divorced. I was like, I really don't want to make films anymore. It's just too tough, you know. And I couldn't find anything I wanted to do. And Bill Macy, who I'd worked with and did Ghost of Mississippi with Bill and State and Maine with him in '99, which I enjoyed immensely because we had a great cast. They said, do you want to do this film? I said, no, I don't want to do this film. And funny enough, in that movie is a good example of how actors can think. Like I've played some of these really, really tough people, these really, really kind of, you know, punishing kind of people in the scene. And you don't enjoy that, believe me. It's like, someone once said to me once, they said, I did a play and I played this very tough guy. And they said, that must be great for you to be able to go to work every night and do that play and get that out of your system. And I said, let me tell you something. I've realized I don't have that much in my system to get out. You know, I did Streetcar Named Desire, and like 6 weeks into it, I was turning to Jessica Lange, and I wanted to go, Blanche, why don't you and I sit down and have a drink? Try to see if there's any way we can connect as people, Blanche. Because you're like so sick of the acrimony, you know, you got to go out and play. But the part is what it is. You know, if it's Hitler, you got to play Hitler. If it's, you know, this tough guy, you got to give it everything you got. So I get the script for The Cooler, and I read the script, and it says right there, he kicks the pregnant woman in the stomach in the boiler room. And I literally am in my bed. I take the script, I close the script, I slam it down on my table, I pick up the phone. I pick up my Valier phone. And I get my agent on the phone, and I swear to God, I get him on the phone, and I go, are you out of your mind? I said, you sent me a script that I'm kicking a pregnant woman in the stomach? Like, whenever they send you the script and it says, you know, Larry steps on to the kindergarten bus with a flamethrower. You're like, boom. So I read this, and it says he kicks the woman in the stomach. And he goes, read the next page, you asshole. And I read the next page, and he was on to the fact that she was faking and it was a foam. She was a con artist. For those of you who have, I've just ruined the whole movie. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I ruined it for you. The movie that came out in 2003, okay? Come on. Thank you. So, but that's a really ugly moment, and you don't want to do it. But my point is that Bill said, come meet Wayne Kramer, the director. Now, when you make movies, movies are a director's medium. You do a play, if you're doing a new play, great. If you're doing revival, which much theater today is revival, we know the material works, it's classic material, and the actors bring more of what they have to bear to the piece. You rehearse, and the director stages the piece, and then the director goes away, and you're kind of on your own. But film is a director's medium, and if you don't have a good director, it is nearly impossible, if not impossible, to make a good film. You cannot make a good film without a good director. So the smart people, they're really very director-centric, which I haven't always been. I was lying in bed one day watching that show, Dinner for Five, they used to have on TV with what's his name, Favreau. And Favreau's, I swear to God, I mean, this is like 7, 8 years ago, and I'm laying in bed there, and I watched Dinner for Five. And Favreau's on with like 4 like unbearably young and beautiful people, and who all have these raging movie careers. And Favreau turns to them and says, "Well, you have the script, you have the cast, You know, your co-stars and you have the director. Those three things, he says, you really can only afford to take a chance on one. If more than one of those is weak, don't do the film. And I literally remember sitting there going, now he tells me. I'm like, shit, I should have thought of that like 10 or 12 years ago, man. Jon Favreau, what are you doing to me, man? But he's right. So you go, and Bill said, meet Wayne, and he was an amazing guy, Wayne Kramer, really with it, smart, knew how to get the most out of the reduced budgets that indies have to work with. Jimmy Whittaker, his DP, was the loveliest guy, the equal of the great, iconic DPs. One of the great factors in my career was I got to work with the greatest cinematographers in history. I got to work with Caleb Deschanel, I got to work with Ballhaus, I got to work with Bob Richardson, I got to work with Tak Fujimoto, Juan Ruiz Anchilla, Steve Burham, Don McAlpine, you name it. John Toll, I just did It's Complicated with Toll, the only one of two men to win back-to-back Oscars for Best Cinematography. He won for Braveheart and Legends of the Fall. And these DPs make the movie. I mean, you do a film and you have a great DP, and you just feel different when you go to work. You know that somebody who's a real artist is photographing you in the film. It makes a huge difference. So I go meet Wayne, and then I met Jimmy, and I said, I'll do the movie. I liked Wayne, and I trusted him. And making films, every decision I've made to make films since 1990, I mean, 1990, I shot Hunt for Red October in '89, and then after that, every decision I made in the subsequent 20 years was agonizing for me of what movies to make or not make. I mean, it was agonizing, you know, and because you always you feel like this hand at your throat, that if the movie doesn't perform well, you know, you're going to get hurt.
While we're on the subject of directors, I just want to go over some of the directors that you've worked with and what you've learned from each of them. Being a film festival, we have a lot of filmmakers here.
How many filmmakers do you have here? So we got four. We got four filmmakers. And three of them are smashed.
So for that one who will remember this night.
This one's for you, babe.
John Hughes.
Well, John was someone who it was not so much about learning from John as enjoying the experience with John of the writer-director who treats the writing a little less reverently when he's on the set. He compartmentalizes those two functions. John was someone who would say, you know, quote unquote, we go onto the set, John would go into his trailer and he would write during breaks and setups if he thought the dialogue needed to have alternate lines and so forth. And he would go in and come out with fresh pages every day. And John would come on the set, though, and we would shoot the scene. And John, as the director, was a completely different person. And John would say, who wrote this shit anyway? When we thought the scene didn't work, you know, or it didn't work as well as we hoped. And John was less precious about his writing than other directors I've worked with who have been, thankfully not many, but I've worked with a few writer-directors who were extremely precious about their writing. And it kind of got in the way of us getting to a better result. But John was like the loveliest guy. He would let you do anything. And John Hughes was the only person I knew who you'd do a take, and he had cue cards, and he had a big magic marker. And I was talking to Kevin Bacon in a scene where I was bragging about with my girlfriend, who was this kind of she was this kind of slutty girl I was dating, and Kevin and his wife were like appalled at her. And John wanted us to talk in this monologue about cities we'd been to, and what we liked or disliked about, or what we thought defined those cities, because we were trying to impress him about we were two world travelers. And John sat there, and the camera's rolling, and John would write like, Berlin, lesbians. He'd be like, and he was writing this while we were doing the take. And I'm sitting there with Kevin, and I was like, when we've been, we went to Berlin, which is just all about lesbians, really. And he just kept, and he was so, his nature was very infectious. He was a great guy. I'm heartbroken that he passed away.
Oliver Stone?
Well, Stone is someone who I only had a very tiny role in that movie, and Stone is someone who, I guess the best way to put it is, Stone's films are most certainly a reflection of what's going on in Stone's mind, which is kind of frightening when you think about it.
I want to touch on a guy that you've had a lot of experience with, David Mamet.
Well, Mamet is somebody who he's had a, he knows the secret, which is that if you're not going to take ultimate responsibility for the film and direct it yourself, then you have to really kind of accept certain realities. And he once said to me, I said, well, don't you get pissed off when people take this material of yours and they don't do it justice? Which thankfully has not been often. I mean, he wrote the Untouchables screenplay for Brian and everything. And we had done The Edge, which was originally called Bookworm. And the film was 70% psychological thriller and 30% action-adventure film. And they got a director who was an action director who flipped that in the editing room. He made it 70%, bear, hide and seek, hunt, seek, and 30% of the kind of Baroque dialogue that you'd have in a Mamet film. And I was a little disappointed about that. And I said I called Mamet, and he said to me, all these scripts are orphan children to me once I pass them on to them. I don't, and it was very wise of him. And then there's the films that he's written that he directed himself. And he did State and Maine. And it was funny to see everybody who was terrified to not do the younger actors who wanted to only do the Mamet kind of cadence and the Mamet intonation in the scene. And they would sit there in the scene, they'd be like, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you. I want to tell you this thing. There's this thing that I need you to know. There's this thing that I need you to know now. It's a thing that I need you to. And they would do this Mamet thing, and I would do like a little bit of that. And Mamet would call me over and say, well, maybe you're putting a little too much on this line. He wanted you to throw everything away. And I learned a lesson eventually, which is, if you don't agree with someone, you just go, yeah, great. Then you go out and do exactly what you want to do in front of the camera, And no offense to him, but I mean, it's true of everybody who's a director. There's Mamet the writer and there's Mamet the director. And I almost wanted to say to him, but I don't think he would have laughed about it. I wanted to say, Dave, I know the writer of this script really, really well. And he would really be pissed off how much you're fucking this whole thing up with this whole kind of throw it away thing you got going on. But you do have it takes you probably about 20 years of acting to develop your own instincts. It takes about 20 years. I honestly can say that. Then there are people who are prodigies who put it together very quickly, very early. What makes Brando Brando was he put all the pieces together while he still had the sheen of his youth and his looks and his virility and all these other things. Brando put the pieces together when he was 24 years old and did Streetcar on Broadway when he was 24 years old and went on to play these iconic roles in films when he was in his 20s and 30s. By the time Brando was 35, he was over the hill in terms of his well, no, I don't mean that in a disparaging way. His best work was behind him, and then he reinvented himself. Brando played the role in The Godfather. He was 40. If I'm not mistaken, The Godfather was shot in 1970, and Brando was born in. I think when Brando did it, he was 50. So Brando was late 40s, 48 years old, something like that. But for everybody else who isn't Brando, who isn't a prodigy as an actor, it takes a long time to develop your own instincts, and that's where it really gets to become fun.
Yeah.
Where you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do.
I want to make sure that we have time for audience questions, which we're going to do in a little bit, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I want to talk about Saturday Night Live.
Right.
I can't. I can't let it go. You're just right behind Steve Martin in that 14th spot. But I mentioned to you that the reason that I put the Canteen Boy clip in here is so that you can tell the story.
Go ahead, Ron. Tell us why you did that.
You were against it. At the time, you were a little uncomfortable about doing it.
Well, no, not really, just in the sense that when you do the show, you go, and there is a fraternity house hazing quality to being on the show. If they think you are game and that you want to be funny. Like, you either go on SNL and send up your own persona, like Stallone or someone who's very, very, has a signature kind of presence on film. And if you don't have that, which most contemporary actors don't. You know, it's not like the days when there was Cagney and everything where everybody was very stylized. Then you come on the show and the goal is to just become another member of the troupe and make an ass of yourself on a television show in front of about 5 or 6 million people. So you do the show and you come on and they say things to you and you read it and you go, you gotta be kidding me. And like a room full of guys would be like, what? Come on, man, come on. It's funny, right? Oh, come on, oh. Come on, man, you're a bunch of buzzkill. Alec doesn't want to play the gay scoutmaster, come on, man. And they really kind of humiliate you, you know? And they really push you. They'll hand you things and you'll go, God, I can't do that. They're like, oh. And you go, okay, all right, I'll be the gay scoutmaster. And it goes on from there. Once they know you, once you give in, you go back there. They're all like, you know, Alec's in the elevator. You know, then they get out of the file with all like the sketches. You know, it says on it, sketches no one else would do. And they give it to you, so you want to have a good time.
There was something that I wanted to put in the video, but I wanted to play a little bit of a longer clip for it, and I want to get your reaction to it. So, Rocky, if you don't mind, would you
good God.
Play just this 1 minute of this right here? Bring that up, Steve.
We have to explain about what when we had him on the show.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Third time? Yeah.
This clip ends when?
Say again?
How long does this clip
93.
go? How long does this go? This clip?
1 minute. It's just I cut it short.
Yeah,
As soon as you finish singing it, because I put a little bit of your vocal part when you sit in the chair, just because you speak like Tony, and then it cuts.
Right.
So I'm going to ask Ralph what he thinks. Hey, you can sing.
No, I can't sing.
Today's show was first rate, really terrific. We had a whole bunch of great stuff. Later on, we're going to be mellowing out to the sounds of tweet. But a great ballad.
I love it. Great.
You know.
Wait. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I got to ask the expert about this imitation.
Oh,
Man,
Ralph
right
is
here.
here. Ralph.
Ralph Sharon, who was with Tony for 40 years, who played for you tonight. Ralph, I got to ask you, what do you think, Ralph? Did he do it?
It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
People don't understand how, when you do, I'll just mention this quickly. You do SNL, and they are all very bright people. They're super bright, all from different comedy venues and the Harvard Lampoon, and they're really smart people. The people that write 30 Rock, the same thing. They're really these super, super smart people. And like, you'll go to SNL, and they'll take you on the day that they write all the sketches over like a 2-day period, and they'll take you to go in and have a pitch with each of the writing individuals or teams. Sometimes they write in teams. And you'll have a young page at NBC who's assigned to take you around, guy or girl, and they'll say, and they're very warm and very friendly, the pages, and they'll look at you and say, we're going to go in and see Steve and Ellen now. We're going to go in and see Steve and Ellen, okay? And you go, sure. And you go in the room and you sit with Steve and Ellen, a writing team, and they'll tell you whatever idea. Then they say, we're going to go meet Barry and Dave. We're going to go see Barry and Dave. And you go, okay. And you go in and they knock on the door and then you hear, the door opened, and it's very dark in the room, and there's like 6 people sitting on the floor. And the lights are out, and the TV's on. And the guy who's like leaning near the door, looking at you, go, shh, come on in, come on in. And they're watching the Paris Hilton sex tape on the TV. But they're not watching the Paris Hilton sex tape for any prurient interest at all. They're watching it like it's the Zapruder film. I'm not kidding you. They're looking for like some comment. And literally a bunch of these like eggheads who work there, they'll sit there and they'll go, wait, stop there. Play that back. What did she say? What did she say? But she's going, ah. And then she says some little phrase. What did she say? Play that back. Dave, play that back. And they're like analyzing on this like sociological level. So one day we're there, and Tony Bennett comes on TV, and he says whatever, you know, I got a great, 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 great show. And we realize that this is a guy who, his whole thing is to remind you, like this old school way, that show business is supposed to be fun. Like everybody now is like bodyguards and the press, and they go, everybody's really, really uptight. I wonder why. But he was there to remind us, so we just had this guy play this like really comically easy breezy thing. His son Danny, who Ralph knows, I get him on the phone, and Danny, I had to explain that because we asked Tony to come on one episode. And Danny goes, yeah, he goes, Dad really wants to do the show, he thinks it's funny and everything. He goes, but like, what are you trying to say about Dad? Like, what's the thing you're trying to say about Dad when you do this? And I go, well, that he reminds everybody that this is supposed to be fun and we're supposed to have a good time and relax and enjoy ourselves. He's like, great, I'm going to sell him on that idea. I'll get him to come. And when Tony Bennett did the show with us, he came to do the show. It was the most unbelievable, because he sang a duet with Christina Aguilera. They did Steppin' Out. Yeah. And then he did the show with us. And he is the loveliest man, and the professional in the business. And he left, and it's like 1:30 in the morning. He packs up his clothes, and we finish the show. And he turns to some of the cast, and he goes, you kids are great. I swear to God. He looks at them, he goes, I just want to say you kids are great. And then he goes, and this has been $1 million night. And he was the nicest guy, you know. And things like that make the business fun when you get to have moments like that, you know.
Okay, so maybe the other end of the spectrum. You were there when Sarah Palin was on.
Yes.
That night.
Well, she was fun.
Yeah, she was funny.
She
rolled
was
with
game.
it.
Yeah, she was game. She was game. Because it's a show where we're supposed to make people laugh, and you can't let other things get in the way. And she was very game, and she was lovely to me. I mean, she was like. She literally, the first thing she said to me, because my brother Stephen is a fundamentalist Christian minister now, and he's a real right-winger. And and she walks up to me and she goes, I spent some time with your brother Steve, and we both agree we got to get together with you and knock some sense into you. And I'm shaking her hand, and I'm like, oh, you and Stephen figured that all out between each other. I'm like, that's great. You're listening to Stephen. He's one of your advisors now, right? Hey, good luck with that. But she was lovely. She knew what she was there for, to get dunked in the tank, and she was very cool about it. She was very cool. Because that's what you go there for. You go there to have fun.
And what a great lucky break you got, knowing Lauren as well as you do, to be on 30 Rock. What a freaking
they came.
Wait, I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
I watched 12 episodes back to back. I felt like I watched the entire Thin Man series. The pacing, I was exhausted by the time.
Well, we realized
this.
it plays better if we say it fast. Sometimes we say it too fast. But I mean, they came to me to do the show, and I had flirted with doing television shows for a while, and Lauren came to me to do this, and I wanted to stay home. I live in New York, and I wanted to. Everything I loved about making films, I grew to not love, which was you don't know where you're going to be 6 months from now, And they asked me to do it, and I said yes, and I wasn't quite sure it was going to work, let alone win every award that they have in the business like 3 and 4 times. You know what I mean? They've been very successful. No, I don't want to say that That is truly, I don't say this in being humble, that has so little to do with me and so much to do with these writers. The writers we have are the hardest working, they're the smartest people, and these people, they work in television, they work themselves to death. You can always tell toward this time of year, like when we come back from Christmas and we have our break and we go into the last 8 episodes and we get like right where we are now. We get into like the last 4 or 5 episodes and you can always tell who the writers are in the building because they look like mental patients over in the corner. They're like twirling their hair and they're like, they're like going crazy. They stay up all night and write. And some of them got kids and wives and everything, and because they have a very high standard, Tina and Robert Carlock, and they work them to death, and then the show's over and we have a long break and they come, many of them swear they won't come back the next season, and then they do, and we've been very lucky, and the show has been the best experience I probably have ever had in the business because for those who work in the business, if you have a good crew, and you have a good, and I'm talking about a good crew from the production office to the driving team to the payroll to the on the set and everything. I mean, a crew isn't just the set; it's a lot of people in production and locations and everything. And we got a top crew in New York, top to bottom. And as a matter of fact, I have a joke because they get along a little too well. I'll come to work and I'll say, if we could all stop hugging each other and flirting with each other, we could maybe finish the day's work in 12 hours. You know what I mean? Because everybody gets along incredibly.
How'd you feel when you first heard that they were looking at you to host the Oscars with Steve?
I was shocked. I mean, I really was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I was shocked. Hosting the Oscars was not something that was a goal of mine, in my life. I didn't sit there watching the Oscars going, that Hugh Jackman, I gotta knock him off, I didn't really think about that, but when they ask you, it's a real honor because it really is. The Oscars are some percentage of people who go there, who are there for red carpet and for press and for glamour and for attention and for self-promotion. That's a very small number. That's a very small number, even though you see those people on a red carpet and that's what's featured on TV. The other 90% of the people in the room are there as members of an academy who are very hardworking people who are there to honor achievement in motion picture making on every level, writing, sound. If you'll see that 90% of the people in that room have seen all those films, and they know what a good sound mix is. They know what makes a good sound mix. They know what a good editing job is. They know what good effects makeup is. And so when these people, when people win the award, they're very happy for the people that win that award. It's a big night in people's lives. When you win, it changes people's lives. So we want to make the show entertaining and make it funny. And they've started to send me some material, and God knows it's funny. We have a lot of funny stuff. And Steve is very funny. But we want it to be dignified as well because it's the highest level of achievement in the motion picture business right now, and we want to make sure we honor that.
Any tips for my Oscar pool?
Any tips for your Oscar pool?
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind? No, but they told us don't talk about films that you liked, and obviously we have favorites and preferences, and there's things we've seen. I've seen everything this year. I sat down and really conscientiously watched all the Academy DVDs that were sent to me, and we all have our opinions, but we were told not to refrain from giving them. And but I think that there's some interesting, potentially history-making possibilities at the Oscars this year. They do have 10 Best Picture nominees for the first time, which was an attempt, I think, on their part to try to bring a bigger audience to the television show. Like if you could have a nominee that was a film for younger audiences, let's say, like Up. If you could have they want to try to get a bigger piece of the television audience to have a horse in that race, And so I think that was the reason they did that. And also Catherine Bigelow having won the DGA award. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only reason I mention this is not as a preference, but Catherine Bigelow having won the DGA award certainly presents the opportunity that she is in the running for the Academy Award as Best Director, and she would be the first woman to ever win the Academy Award for Best Director. So, Look how excited she is about that. But what else did you? Because I want to talk about your movies.
I know. I want to get the skinny on you retiring, on you saying I'm done with films.
Well, I do the show. We're going to do another year, and I don't know if we'll do much beyond that. We'll see, because we all have contracts for 6 years. Next year would be season 5, which is our syndication package. So we're pretty much locked to do that because we sold it to syndication. And how much we go beyond that, I don't know. But I do sometimes, and this is a good segue into the other subject.
You like it?
Is excellent, Ron. Excellent, Ron. Excellent, Ron. Is, you know, you come to a festival and you see the films that you have here at the festival, and you see the work that's done. I'm on the board of the Hamptons International Film Festival in East Hampton, Long Island, where I live, and I joined their board and I've become more involved. We have a summer documentary program that we have, which is an awareness program. The festival's in October. And we have a summer documentary series where we show a film the end of June, July, and August when eastern Long Island is packed with people coming out to the beach for the summer season. And it's very crowded there, and we have had this very successful program. We showed The Cove, the Luis Sahayos film that was nominated, a stunning film. We showed Davis Guggenheim's It Might Get Loud, the movie about the electric guitar. And then we showed Sarah and Emily Kunstler's film about their father, William Kunstler, Disturbing the Universe, which was an incredible film as well, about the attorney William Kunstler. So, I mean, again, you come here and you see that the documentary film is not the truth. It's someone's perspective on the truth. But it's a perspective on the truth that you are not likely to get anywhere in the mainstream media today. And I'm not saying that in some conspiratorial or some, you know, tweaked out liberal, you know, paranoia thing. I'm saying that the mainstream media is a business that has its edicts and it has its imperatives. And those imperatives prevent it from covering the news in a way that they might cover it. Like if you look at the New York Times, for example, the New York Times will do great work on the issue. This is just one example I can use. The New York Times will do great work on the issue of campaign finance reform. They will do exemplary work. They will do important work on the issue of campaign finance reform. Why? Because no one's taking out ads in the New York Times when they run for office. It doesn't cost them anything to take that position on campaign finance reform. They can have a, you know, but where the New York Times doesn't always do the job I think they should do in terms of the nuclear power issue, because the board of directors of the New York Times is filled with people who are on the boards of the banks that underwrite the loans that go to build the nuclear power plants around the country. So where there is a conflict of interest in the integration of media corporations today, you have some problems with what you see and what's being presented to you, how it's prioritized. And that's what the beauty of these film festivals is. And not just in the documentary category. Like, for example, when you watch TV and you watch a premium cable package, well, how does that business work? Well, if you're in the sales division of a premium cable service, you turn to someone and say, would you like to have Hurt Locker, or do you want to have The Blind Side sold as a film to your cable company? Then you got to take these other 6 really shitty films we made last year with that movie, and it's like a poison pill. You got to swallow that as well. And their attitude is, one of these days, you're going to watch that movie. And they're right, because they know that the movies are in the lives of a critical mass of people in this country. They're like snack food, you know what I mean? You're gonna break down and you're gonna have a bag of sour cream potato chips. And there's just nothing else out there. You know, you're gonna eat it. You know what I mean? It's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're bleary-eyed and you're hungry, and you're like, okay, an apple or some sour cream ruffles, you know? And they know that the same is with movies. You know, you're gonna sit there and you're gonna go, infomercial, or that really shitty movie I swore I would never watch. And you're going to watch it, and to some degree. Film festivals provide an alternative to that. Narrative films, feature films that might not get a real great exhibition in mainstream audiences, even in art houses. Many films I saw at the Hamptons Film Festival, some of which you have here, a handful of them, A Waking Sleeping Beauty, There's a couple, these are all great documentary films, but some of those films, they get a couple weeks at an art house in Manhattan, and then they disappear. So these film festivals are very important for you in terms of the narrative and the documentary as well, for things that media corporations now just can't do, and they won't do. And until we get to the age of the fully realized pay-per-view television viewing, I mean, where everything you watch, where the networks will become pay-per-view systems themselves, where everything you want to buy, you order, and the advertising is embedded in the order that you put in. Just like if you watch something on their websites now, like NBC.com. And once we get to there, it'll be different. But I really believe that if you, and you see the connectedness, and this is the last thing I'll say, you see the connectedness between these disparate views of films. Like, I mean, Hurt Locker is an independent film that got a very successful mainstream distribution. But think about what good film, what important film does. Today you could sit here this morning and watch the Ellsberg documentary. And you could go through the experience, I would assume, that filmmaker wanted you to go through, which is the shame and the anger and the bitterness you feel toward a government that had decades of lying to people in order to keep this war going back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and you feel all the feelings that that filmmaker and that Ellsberg and that all that wanted you to feel are revisited for those of them who are old enough to remember the real tragedy of the Vietnam experience. And then you turn around and you watch Hurt Locker and say, well, thank God when we do go to war, we've got some really ass-kicking dudes who are doing the job. You know, the really conflicting feelings you have about, God, I don't want war to be waged unnecessarily. It should be a last option. Then you think, if Hurt Locker is accurate, the American troops are tough and decisive and courageous and humane in most instances, but yes, there are anomalies. So film presents you with, these films present you with a more diverse perspective, but I'm not quite sure you can always find that, especially the Ellsberg angle, in mainstream media.
One quick thing before we go to the audience. No, I just want to ask you about your thoughts of running for elected office, because I want to read you something from your third grade report card.
Oh, no.
Yeah. From the third grade report card, it says, Alec will become famous or president of the U.S., one or the other.
Well, let me just say that in the time that I've been alive, the presidency has obviously changed, and more importantly, political life has changed in this country. Leadership has changed. When you think about it, we've had the White House occupied, forget about partisanship, we've had the White House occupied by men. We had 20 years of Yale graduates in the White House, and now we have a Harvard graduate. We will have had 24 years consecutively since Clinton was elected of Ivy League men in the White House. And I want to venture to say to you, I'm not quite sure that's a good thing. Meaning, where is the diversity in American? We seem to have institutionalized a certain kind of mindset as what we call leadership in this country. And I'm not saying that we should disqualify people because they have an Ivy League degree. That would be just as conspicuously wrong. But I think that that what's happened is that whether it's term limits, I don't know. I feel like we have to get the professional class of people in political life more responsive, and we have to find a way for people to take more chances and say to themselves, I'm going to run and I'm going to have a certain set of convictions and there's a certain set of things I want to do, and if I lose, I lose, rather than protecting power and holding on to power. And my friend told me that people who are in the U.S. Senate right now, they sit at a phone and they spend 1 day out of 5. In a 5-day week, they spend 1 full day, 20% of their government service, on the phone raising money from their highest donors. They have to raise $100,000 a week in order to run in a major venue with a major market like, and I would consider Colorado one of those major states in terms of media saturation. And I think that that's appalling. There's a lot of changes that need to happen. The Supreme Court decision about campaign finance reform was bad, really bad. But But rather than ending this on that kind of note, on this kind of...
That's okay.
I was trying to think of a really kind of raunchy joke I could tell now.
We'll come back
About the Supreme Court. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with one. If anybody's got one, let me know. But anyway, we'll take some questions, yeah.
Well, let's bring the lights up just a little bit. We've got microphones at the base of the aisles here. Feel free to, let's take a few minutes and see what you want to say to Alec. We'll start with this guy who jumped right in.
I just want to ask you something along the sort of political lines that you were just talking about.
Could you speak into the mic? I can't hear you.
So my question is this. We used to have this notion of public intellectual. And nowadays, what we have as a replacement is you guys, smart, dedicated people, celebrities, people from Hollywood and so on and so forth. I wonder what you think about this whole thing. Is this...
Well, the only thing I think about that's related to that is that I think that people in our society have transposed a certain kind of feeling they have about the democratic process away from politics and over to the world of entertainment. The reason they're obsessed, maybe not the people in this room, but a huge swath of the country is obsessed with tabloid media and all this stuff because they believe that that's a place where their vote counts. Because the other place, your vote doesn't count anymore, and your opinion doesn't count anymore. And the people in Washington really, truly don't give a shit what you think about anything. And so people want to have this thumbs up and thumbs down thing about the world of celebrity. And I mean, if I told you all to leave here with one thing, I'd say to you, please don't ever watch Access Hollywood, Entertainment Tonight, Extra, watch any of those shows, or read People magazine, or any of this entertainment journalism, because it is all just vomit on a page. So, so bad. Because it takes our minds off things that really matter. Anyway.
On a much lighter note, curious to know if you were to be your own critique over the years, what you feel your strengths were in drama versus comedic roles, and if so, if you do have an opinion, why, and if you feel like you have an improvement on either.
Well, I think for many people, you don't get the chance to do things necessarily the way you might do them. I don't think someone becomes funny when they're 45 years old. You know what I mean? Like somebody's funny, and you just haven't had the chance to show that, or somebody has a certain kind of timing. And again, everything that I do on the TV show is funny because someone wrote something funny, and it's like literally like a singer-songwriter relationship, you know. The more famous person is the singer. Sinatra was more famous than anybody who wrote the songs that he wrote. But you, as a performer, you never want to lose that sense of indebtedness to great writers. And in terms of drama, you know, there were movies I wanted to do. I mean, if I had my way, I would have done movies like The Insider with Michael Mann. You know, I would have done these really tough, I would have done Donnie Brasco and movies like that, which were much more kind of authentic and very much more real dramas. But as I mentioned before, the line that you have to get on, you know, my joke is that when there's a really great script, 10 guys have to die before they even call me. You know? They got to die. You know what I mean? And so it's tough, you know, it's very tough. But I would love to have done things, we all wish we'd done things differently, but I think most actors I know, you play the hand that's dealt you. Yeah.
Over here, please.
Thank you. That was almost my question, but I would like to ask, when or how did you realize that comedy would be a great niche for you? Was it the repeated?
Well, I didn't decide it would be a great niche. I think that the people who have been very kind to the show, they decided that it would. But I think, you know, when we did 30 Rock, there was another show that came out, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Sorkin, Matt Perry, Bradley Whitford. There were 3 legacy relationships that NBC had with the writer-director of that and 2 stars. And we thought, we're dead. I mean, Tina would look at me and go, we're fucked. You know, they're going to pick them up and they're going to soar and we're going to die. And they died and we lived. We were shocked by that. Because it was kind of strange that they did a show which was set at a comedy at an SNL type variety show, and yet they played it in that kind of Sorkinagian way. You know, it was like West Wing. It was like, you know, damn it, Jerry, I want to tell you about this comedy idea I have. You know, and everybody was a little too pumped up, and it was supposed to be a comedy, you know. And they died and we lived, and that was like a shock to all of us. So we got lucky. We got lucky.
Part 2 was, why no duet between you and the Bennett pianist? That was opportunity knocking.
You and Ralph, you know, getting up.
Oh, I thought you said something else.
Yeah, I know. That's next year. Different film festival.
The young lady in the red dress, please.
Yeah. Please save us up
The
here.
gorgeous woman in the red dress. Talk to me.
What have preparations for the Academy Awards been like, and what's the next couple weeks going to be like?
Well, the Academy Awards are a very serious enterprise because the Academy of Motion Pictures earns a almost inconceivable amount of their annual revenue in one night. The licensing of the Academy Awards broadcast around the world, it's a global event. As they say, you know, 1 billion people watch the Oscars, which is pretty much true. It's the only time I think Hollywood doesn't inflate their numbers of who's watching. The Oscars is it's a huge thing for them, so they're very, very protective of that. Scripts, material, what's going on, show running, show orders, lyrics, contributors, all that stuff is not released. And they've told us, oh, you know, you really got to not. I haven't done very much publicity. We shot promos and everything, but they don't want me out there talking about it. They want to just go boom. They know what they're doing. They know what kind of show they want to do. But it's you know, memorials and tributes to genre and tributes to our filmmakers and you know, I think Steve and I have that like a little over 20 minutes of stuff we say in a 3-hour show. The rest is awards, acceptance speeches, musical numbers, tributes.
Commercials.
And commercials. Yeah, a lot of commercials.
Yeah. You may have forgotten about that.
Oh, yeah. About an hour's worth of commercials out of the 3 hours of TV, literally. So they have a formula that they know what they want to do. And it's very, because the Academy is really an amazing situation. I mean, you get their reports and you get their newsletter, and the Academy is doing all this incredible work with their programming in London, Beverly Hills, New York. I think they have it in Nashville now. They do programming. And they have a really amazing, if I lived in Los Angeles, which I don't, because the Academy headquarters are there, how many people here have been to the Academy in Los Angeles? So the Academy in Los Angeles is one of the great screening rooms in Los Angeles. I mean, to see a movie at the Academy is really to see a movie the way it was meant to be seen. I went to go to the DGA or the Academy. I went to the opening of Malcolm X, the movie years ago that my friend Marvin Worth produced. And when you see a movie at the Academy, you have seen a movie. You know, it's a really the highest quality technical apparatus and everything. And so they do such great work. You know, they do such exhibits about costuming, exhibits about animation, exhibits about technological development, exhibits about property departments, and the history of filmmaking is there for you to study at the Academy. And so that costs a lot of money. So they are very proprietary about the Oscars. Yeah.
Every week, my husband and I laugh
Could
out.
you tip that
Just
down?
pull that mic right down to your mouth. There you
Okay,
go.
thank you. Every week, my husband and I laugh out loud when you're introduced on 30 Rock and you do that little spin move.
And I do it the same way.
Every time.
I have it down.
I was wondering if that was your idea, and would you do the move?
No, but that's obviously clips that they put together. And they had a different clip for me. And they used a different clip first. And I said, I don't like that clip. I said, use it. I mean, I learned to succeed in this business, you really have to be a selfish bastard, you know? And I said, I don't like that clip. I want it, and I picked that clip. Yeah, I said, I want you to use that clip.
Thanks.
Sure.
And I'm going to meet you later. I'm going to do it for you. You and I, we're going to get to that.
Right over here.
I'd just like to ask about...
You have a dark suit on and a beard.
I do, yeah.
And you have kind of a Beatle haircut, too.
You're in Boulder.
Now I can see you.
Okay.
I just like to ask.
You kind of look like a shrub over there from there. But now,
That's
without
one of
my
the
glasses,
nicer things I've been called.
now you look
actually.
like one of the Beatles. Here we go. Go
Well,
ahead.
I just like to ask about one of my favorite performances you've done, which is Charles Nelson Riley. Saturday Night Live. How did you?
Well, if you do, go ahead. What was your question?
How did you prepare for that? Did you go back through like a troll?
Yeah,
in
we
Central
watched
Park
footage
and
of
Love
him
American
on
Style?
like Match Game and all those goofy shows from back then.
And I have a request too. Would you do a brief
No, I couldn't do.
demonstration?
No, I couldn't do that. But we did get that where we because you got to. I mean, I have to be like, yeah, you got to do the glasses thing and everything and shake your hand. But I couldn't. I'll do it for you later too.
Okay, I'm gonna take you up on it. Thank you.
We're gonna get together, the three of us, and have a little. We'll have a drink.
Back over here, please.
Alec, could I call you Alec? I mean, I feel like
Yes, baby.
Oh, thank you. You just don't know what you did to my heart. I have two questions. I'm going to start with the first. You've been very catty about not proclaiming which side of the fence you're on politically. We can only hope that you would fit in Boulder.
Do you know who I am? Did you read the program?
This is a
not
Jerry
Charlton
Lewis
Heston,
marathon, isn't it? Well, good.
What is your question?
You might want to get to the second one.
Okay. Well, yeah, I actually. On the documentaries that you were talking about, I think I disagree with you on most documentaries do have someone's influence. But I think that there are documentaries like Millhouse and going back before we were so trashy and horrible and shallow and stupid that I do think there are legitimate documentaries. And then my last thing is nothing personal, but
Well,
just...
but I want to be very careful about something, which is I didn't delegitimize any of the documentaries that were shown there. What I said it was just the opposite. I would never assume that any documentary that I responded to was the truth. That's where you get into trouble. I'd say that's someone else's truth. That filmmaker, that's his or her truth. But what I appreciate is that perspective in that film. I remember I did a show called Raw Footage with a filmmaker named Mark Morey, and we did a film series that was very short-lived because Bravo IFC, their original programming budget was so small. They used to joke that we spent half their budget just on our stupid little dinky show. And I would interview documentary filmmakers who had not had a substantial exhibition or release of their film. We did, narrative as well. We did David O. Russell when he had just done Spanking the Monkey before he went on to do bigger films, and we did I love Boulder, by the way. Anyway, long story short is that then we had on R.J. Cutler and David Van Taylor, who did Perfect Candidate together. Cutler had done The War Room with Pennebaker. Van Taylor had done Dream Deceivers about the Judas Priest litigation in Nevada, where the two kids shot themselves listening to suicide lyrics in Nevada. And they got together to do this movie, Perfect Candidate. How many people here know Perfect Candidate? It was about, great film, am I right? Great film about the Chuck Robb, Oliver North Senate race. Great film. You should see this film. And we did this film, and we had a guy his name was Seftel. We had two guys on, Pack and Seftel, who were conservative filmmakers. Like one guy did a documentary about how business is portrayed as evil in Hollywood movies. And his documentary was and he was a very straightforward, very earnest guy. And he was a very, kind of clearly this neoconservative guy who thought that was, he was dismayed by that. But we gave him a spot on the show. We wanted to try to finding conservative documentary filmmakers was really a needle in a haystack. It was tough. No, but I'm saying that's just the reality of it. But the films that we show at the Hamptons Film Festival because I'm on the board here. I can see, I would never say that they were the truth. It's someone's version of the truth. Was there another question you had?
Yes, I do. I have a plea. I have a plea, and I'm not from Mississippi, but I have a plea. If you just steer clear of Paula.
Who? Steer clear of Palin.
Palin.
Oh, Palin.
Miss Palin.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Woo! I'm going to make T-shirts. Steer clear of Paula. For everybody.
For everybody.
Go ahead.
Inside joke.
First of all, I wanted to.
Yes.
I wanted to thank you for, I guess, showing me and my fellow actors out there the true commitment in your Saturday Night Live sketch, Green Hilly. You and the dog.
You're very funny.
Forever. But then I do have a question.
Yeah.
Do you yourself direct theater, film, TV? Are you a director also?
It's very dark over there.
Bring the lights up just a little bit if you would.
I directed a film once and I hated it.
That's good.
I directed one film and I absolutely hated it. Because when you're the star of the film, you can hide in your trailer. And when the head of the studio comes, you don't have to talk to him. They come to your room and they're like, Bob's here. And you're like, tell him I'm sick. Tell him I'm sleeping. Tell him I'm on the phone. And you don't have to, you can hide in your trailer. When you're the director, you can't hide from the studio. And I did a film once, and directing a film is a very, very, how many directors do we have here? How many film directors? Directing a film is it's a very unique calling. Because I would say, honestly, that of the three guilds in the business, the one that is the most efficient, it's the best union. The DGA is the best guild for its members, but the Directors Guild as a unit is the most efficient in terms of how many talented people they have to make dramatic films. There's a lot of great actors out there. There's a lot of great writers out there. There's a lot of great unproduced material out there. There are not a lot of great directors in this business right now. Those days of Playhouse 90 and people coming from a theater background and people, I think it's ironic we talked about Ellsberg's film today, and then circling around to Hurt Locker. Another component of that was I played McNamara in a film through HBO called Path to War. That was the last project that John Frankenheimer made, the great John Frankenheimer. And Frankenheimer was still, even though he was very old, and he got cancer a little bit prior to when we made the film, and he died right after we made the film. We made it in the fall of 2001. We went to work right after 9/11 in October of 2001. And the great Frankenheimer, who, like Lumet and other directors you can name, had such varied films he made. Frankenheimer had made Seconds with Rock Hudson. He made 7 Days in May. He made Birdman of Alcatraz. Le Mans he made with Steve McQueen and Rockford Files. Jim Garner. And he made The Train. Frankenheimer, who was a great, great filmmaker, I always say a great director has still got one in them. I don't care how old they are. Lumet did Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, and Lumet is like 175 years old. He's so goddamn old, it's not funny. And and they said, come work with John. And it was such a thrill to work with John. He was such a great, and he died right after, And I got to be very good friends with John. He was one of the few directors I got very close with. But there aren't that many people like that anymore, who really can, like Nichols. What makes Nichols Nichols is that he sees everything. What makes Scorsese Scorsese is the color of your tie and the color of that painting over your shoulder is really pissing him off. He wants the painting changed. He wants you to change the tie. He wants you to come in a little quicker. He wants you to say that line a little quicker. He wants you to, he has a lot of questions, constantly trying to make it better, make it better, make it better, questions that really help make it better. And then there's directors I've worked with who are what I call tanker captains. The movie is a gigantic vessel that they're supposed to bring into a harbor on a certain budget and a certain schedule, and they want to try not to spill all the oil in the harbor. and hit any of the rock outcroppings. And they're not there to do anything creative. It's a technical enterprise. It's a crew of 300 people and a lot of money, and they don't really know anything about acting. And so I think directors who can learn something about acting, which is no mistake that some of the best directors have been actors, and they had that muscle they developed to direct. I think it would do them a world of good if they could do that. Yes, ma'am.
That kind of actually segues into my question. I'm born and raised in the Mecca that is LA and Hollywood with the classical film training, and sadly admitting a first job at Access Hollywood, where I completely agree with your opinion. I know. No, I completely agree after having that background and studying and seeing how the studio system has
But I want to be clear about something else, by the way, that the people who do those shows, some of them are my friends.
Oh, yeah.
And they're lovely people.
They are.
They're great people.
No,
I mean, the shows suck, but they're great people.
Yeah. No, it really is a bunch of opinions, but the studio system's constantly changing and coming from somewhere that's like LA with media the way it is. And
So what's your question?
Well, filmmakers here, I'm just saying you've seen the changes throughout the years. Do you have any suggestions for the people who are in it for the creative process, rather than the way the studio's changing now, more media-centric?
Well, I mean, my one advice to people who go into the film business is don't chase money. And that's hard to do. I remember one time I got a job, and like I was like Jim Neighbors as Gomer Pyle. I got a job, and I call my agent, and he says, "You're gonna get $25 for the pilot and $12.5 per episode." And I'm like, Shazam! I was like, y'all gonna pay me $2,500 to be in the pilot? And y'all gonna give me $1,250 to be in the show? He's like, no, you moron! They're gonna give you $25,000 for the pilot and $12,500 a week. And I was like, I literally was like blinking, frozen. I thought I was gonna pass out in this phone booth when he told me this, when I got my first job on a TV show in LA. I did this TV show. I think I was at the same phone booth like 2 or 3 years later, talking to my agent going, I gotta get my hands on a fast million. Because I wanted to buy a house. So you go in this business and you annualize your income, you make a certain amount of money, and it grows incrementally. And all my friends who have had this opportunity, because many of them have not made that kind of an income, they grew to chase money. They grew to have to earn a certain amount of money to pay their bills and pay their debt, and that's the death of your career. You can't make the choices you want to make. You can't sit back and Catherine Bigelow calls you and says, do Hurt Locker, and you can't because you went to go do, I Got Your Hurt Locker, a comedy with, some idiot film company. And, it's like some sex comedy. It's like so stupid and bad, but they're going to pay you and you need to make money. And I have seen where I tell people all the time, I go, keep your expenses low when you're in like the kind of the first 10, I don't know how to spell it out this way, but like when you're young and in your 20s, even in your 30s, don't go buy a house for millions of dollars in the Hollywood Hills and get a $150,000 BMW and have all the toys and all the crap. Keep it simple. And really, really keep yourself light infantry so you can really move and go and do and not have to be so chasing money that way. Yeah.
Hi.
One more quick one over here.
Super nervous. Thank you for recognizing writers. I really appreciate that because I write and my whole family's writers, so awesome. My question's easy. Who did you, when you were watching a movie when you were younger, who was your favorite actor, or what kind of turned it on for you that made you decide you wanted to act?
Well, I grew up in a very different time. I always tell this story at these kinds of events where when I grew up, there was no, it's really funny when you say this to people, there were no computers then. Well,
Grandpa.
Thank you. There was no cable and no VHS, and no CDs and no pay-per-view either. And you watched on syndicated. How many people here? Anybody here from New York? From New York? Okay. Okay, I forgot all my buddies.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, over there. You over there. And you'd watch movies from the Warner Brothers Library or the Columbia Library or whatever the movie studio was on the syndicated stations, PIX, WOR, NEW, million. There you go, baby. $1 Million Movie. Go to YouTube and click in the word $1 Million Movie and see the old credits for $1 Million Movie in New York, where they'd show shots of New York and they'd play the theme from Gone with the Wind. And when I was a kid, they'd take a movie that had already been out for like 5 years. I mean, this is what it was like when I was a kid. They'd sit there and they go, on NBC, Sunday nights, an encore presentation of The Sound of Music. This movie came out 5 years ago. But if they were going to show Sound of Music on TV, you did not miss seeing that movie. Nobody was selling home video and home theaters and all this crap. There was none of that. So you watched Cagney and Bogart and Edward G. Robinson and gangster films. And in New York, they had, before Letterman bought the rights to the show, The Late Show. How many people remember The Late Show in New York when they were kids? Thank God bless you, darling. The Late Show was a film they showed at 11:30. And then they literally had The Late Late Show and The Late 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 Show. They had a movie on at 11:30, 1:15, and 3 o'clock in the morning. And I would stay up and watch these movies. You know, my mother would be like, turn that off! You know? And we would watch these gangster films, you know? And so actors to me that I love were from them. Like my contemporaries, there are many of them that I admire. But when I meet people, like when I worked with Tony Hopkins, I mean, like for the first 2 days, I was like, he'd do a line and I go, I was like, could you say that line again? Because I didn't listen to a word you were saying. I was so juiced to work with him. I was on an elevator. I told this story, I think, on Letterman, where I was on an elevator and I was at a hotel in New York, and I was visiting a friend at the hotel. And this woman I was visiting there, yes, and I get on the elevator early in the morning, and Burt Lancaster is on. This is the old Wyndham Hotel in New York on 58th and 6th, which is now AKA this extended stay hotel. But the old Wyndham was where all these old guard Hollywood people stayed at the Wyndham. And I get on the elevator at the Wyndham, and Burt Lancaster I'm on his left. And the elevator is ticking down, and he literally is standing there, and he knows I'm staring at him. Because people have been staring at him for 50 years. You know? And he knows when you're like, and I'm literally, he's here, and I'm literally going. This is like 1987, 88, you know? And I'm like, oh my God. And I swear to God, he was standing there like this going. And he never looked at me. He never looked at me. But he kind of stood there like, take it in, go ahead, take it in. Go ahead and just eat it up. Because you've only got 4 more floors to go. And he just was so used to people like loving him, you know, and like digging him. And I was like that, you know. I met Gregory Peck and people like that I was excited about. So,
okay, maybe just a couple more questions here, please.
Hi. I'm wondering if you can tell me what role you're the most proud of and that you want to be remembered for.
You're wearing a lot of black, so I'll put my glasses on again. I think that because in film things are so fleeting, and because it's all so...
This could be a stage. Doesn't have to be a movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, things in the theater have always been the more indelible for me. Because you rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and you really live it, you know? I'll never forget when and I guess the things also that are early in your life, I say this to people who, when you do, like I'm about to go do a play this summer. I don't want to blow it and say anything, but we just, I actually get kind of choked up thinking about this because there's a writer who I wanted to do this play. And they did the show in London, a revival of it, and then the London production came to New York, and I wanted to play this part, and I couldn't because they brought the British cast here. And I've always wanted to do this play. So my friend called me who knew this and said, let's do the play this summer. And I said, well, they just did it in New York. He goes, and the man who was talking to me was an older man who was very distinguished, very experienced in the theater in New York. And he said, I'm very good friends with so-and-so, the writer, the playwright, who's very proprietary about his work. And he said, I'm going to invite him to my house for dinner, and I want you to come. And we're going to ask him if he'll let us do the play this summer, even though it was just done in New York. And we went to dinner at my friend's house, and there was this playwright. I mean, I'm going to come out and say it because I shouldn't, but we don't know yet. But don't hold me to this. So it's Peter Schaffer. We wanted to do Equus, and so here's Schaffer who wrote Amadeus and Equus, and again it's like Burt Lancaster. I'm at my friend's house, and I'm like. Like every word that comes out of his mouth is like, I'm just dying. And I'm going to do Equus this summer in East Hampton at Guildhall. And I've wanted to do this play forever. And because I think it's one of the great plays of the last 50 years. And but the theater gives you that opportunity that you just don't really have in film. Like film, you watch a film and like if a film I made comes on TV, I'll see the film and I'll go, I remember that day. That's the day I got rear-ended by that guy on the 101 freeway. Like you remember everything around the film, but you don't necessarily remember the scenes. You can summon that, but it takes a lot of work. Whereas in the theater, it all comes back to you in this kind of haunting way. One of the consequences of doing a play is you ruin that play for everybody you see it with from then on. Because you'll be sitting there in the theater and you'll go, I didn't do it that way. You know, I would talk, sip, talk, cup down, get up, light. You know, you remember the muscular thing is all in you, you know? And so the theater, I'll never forget, we did the play Prelude to a Kiss off Broadway, and we later on did the film, which it didn't really work as a film, but we did the play, and we would do the play, and it was really hard. And the reason it was hard was you could hear the people sobbing in the audience while we were doing the play. I mean, they were sobbing because it was really the most beautiful play. And it really worked as a play. You know, as a play, it really was very impactful. I mean, we did a run at the Circle Rep Theater, and the last week we did the show, everybody from Hollywood came out to get the rights to the film. And we did the play the last week, and like Barbara Streisand was sitting in the stairs. They couldn't get her a seat. Barbara Streisand, you know what I mean? And the heads of the studio and all these people came to see the show, and it was really, that was probably the greatest experience I ever had. Because I'll tell you another factor. I can't believe I'm telling you this, but it's so real, and that is there's a Tony Child song, Like Angels Walk. You know that song, Like Angels Walk? Walk and talk like the angels. And whenever that song comes on, I die. Because in the play, my character would fall in love with Mary Louise Parker. I did the show with Mary Louise Parker. And I say to you, with no equivocation, I fell in love with Mary Louise Parker every night that I did the play. And I come to work the next day, and I'd be like, you know, hey, Mary Louise, you know. I was like, you know, what's going on, babe? How was your weekend? Yeah? All right. And I didn't really think, and then we go out on stage and do the play, and I literally sit there and go, oh my God, I'm falling in love with Mary Louise again. I'm in love with her. I am in love with her. I would die for her. And I felt, and Mary Louise is one of the more lovable women in the business, believe me, and actresses and very talented. And whenever I hear that song, it drives me to insanity. Because it reminds me of those scenes. So when you do plays, it just gets in you so deeply. It's kind of haunting, actually. Yeah. You have time for one more?
One last one, please.
So, Mr. Baldwin, I have to get this out of the way. Your hair, it's like a shag carpet. I want to sit on it and play a board game. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
Did you have a question?
I do. Okay, Okay, so I'm starting to apply for colleges soon, and I really want to get into film and acting, and I was wondering if you had any words of advice.
You want to get into, when you say that, I want to get into film and acting, what do you mean?
Well, I really
want to act in films, or you want to make films?
Well, either act or just write. I mean, whatever I can get, really. I want to be a comedy writer.
You
honestly.
do?
Yeah.
Well, I think, sorry? Yeah, you got good start. You can deliver a line. Well, I think that for people who, I think that for people in any discipline, when you're at the undergraduate level, this is a very private thing, but I think that a lot of people who are older in the audience will agree with me, is take a class. Don't take these classes in school that are very specific to a certain result in the performing arts. Meaning, if you talk to all the writers at 30 Rock, their undergraduate years at Harvard, we have an abundance of Harvard people there, and they are all majored in philosophy, literature. They read a lot of books. They took courses where they have degrees in fine arts. They read a lot of books, and they studied something, you know, to a fare thee well at the undergraduate level, and you're either funny or you're not. No amount of reading is going to make you funny, you know what I mean? And the purpose, I think, at your age is to get the broadest education and to read as many books as you possibly can, to read as much literature as you can and as much history as you can, and then and become more educated and more open-minded, and for people who are very, very focused on making it. I always find that the people who are the most focused on making it don't make it. And the people who are the most focused on finding what's the thing they're going to connect to, because this business is filled with people who get detoured. So you want to do something, and you're going to wind up becoming a producer. You wanted to be, this is true very much in the acting column. Like in my class, we'll end with this, is that when I took acting, there was a guy, David, I won't say his last name, lovely guy, but my teachers at Strasbourg, where I studied, they really, this guy he played Oberon. You can just tell where I'm headed here. He was Oberon in Midsummer. He was this very dark and very haunting and very hollow looking, and he was very, you know, he wore black clothes and smoked and drank coffee, and he was like 15 years old. I don't know what the hell he was. And he was Oberon. Robert Pattinson would be the closest thing I can say. He was very attractive and very adored by everyone. And literally, like every time we would do scenes in class, the teacher might as well have just said, "Why can't you all be more like David?" That was very good, David. Thank you, David. And his scene would be over, and he would sit down, and everyone was like, "Why can't you be more like David?" 10 years after we left school, I ran into David on the subway in New York, and he was like an insurance salesman. He had completely washed out of the corps de ballet, as it were, of acting, and wasn't going to make it, you know. And what I'm saying is I did Saturday Night Live, and some of those people on that show, I would literally, because I wasn't enamored of everyone, I mean, if everything is special, then nothing is special. And so I'm sitting there with this guy next to me, and I won't name names, but like one or two of them, I'd sit there and go, "Boy, I hope he saves his money." You know? And some of them are the biggest names in movies today. They're huge movies. So who makes it and who doesn't, that's real, that's Hogwarts time. You know what I mean? That's like magic, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Anyway.
So this is what I want to end with. When you turned 50, you did an interview just last year, and I loved what you said here. You said, "Suddenly life is too short. You realize that you have plenty of time left, but none to waste. And you don't want to do anything that you don't want to do." I know you didn't have to come here tonight, but you came here.
Thank you.
The 2010 recipient of the Boulder International Film Festival Award of Excellence in Acting, it's Alec Baldwin.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.